All right. Hello, everybody. Hello and good evening. Happy Tuesday. It is Tuesdays with Tamika. I am Tamika Walker Kelly, your favorite music teacher and president of the North Carolina Association of Educators. And this is a special hour long edition of Tuesdays with Tamika. So we have coined this edition our Law and Order edition of our program because I will be joined by several NCAE endorsed candidates from Attorney General to the Court of Appeals. And so I am so glad to have them all here with us today. But we are going to start with a great friend to NCAE, North Carolina Attorney General Josh Stein. So let me go ahead and bring him up. Josh, say hello to the people.
Hey, Tamika. Hey, everybody. Can I be Sam Watterson if we're doing Law and Order?
Yeah, you sure can. You sure can. That's awesome. Thank you so much for being here with us. And so we have a whole host of questions to ask all of our guests. And so I'm glad that you are here, Josh. And so want to, of course, talk to you a little bit about the state of things. You have been involved in North Carolina politics for some time now in a number of ways. And since the beginning, you've been involved with NCAE and with public education. So can you tell us about your journey to Attorney General and why you are seeking another term in office?
Absolutely, Tamika. And I do thank you for having me on Tuesdays with Tamika. Um, Before I was Attorney General, I was a state senator for 4 terms, representing Raleigh and Cary and Morrisville, Western Wake County. And NCAE was an ally. We were partners. And Marge Foreman, what a wonderful job she does for you all down at the legislature. And it was actually a rough time because the first 2 years I came in were 2009 and 10, which was the heart of the recession. And that was just devastating to state budgets, the Great Recession. And then, as we all know, in 2010, the Republicans came into office. And even when the economy ticked up, they were still cutting public education because they prioritized tax giveaways to shareholders of out-of-state corporations more than they prioritized our school kids and school teachers. And so one of the biggest things I fought on was trying to right that imbalance, to give much greater weight and priority to the future of our state, which are our young people, and to our teachers who are responsible for educating our young people. And I would say that's where the relationship with NCAA really solidified into a true partnership. And then before I was in the state Senate, I served with Roy Cooper. I headed his Consumer Protection Division. This was when he was Attorney General. I did that for 8 years, from 2001 to 2008. And that work was all about protecting the people of the state, consumers, working folks who were being mistreated, treated unfairly, or deceived by companies, corporations. And my job was to go to bat for those folks, go to war for them. And obviously, working folks include teachers. And it was always a great joy to know that I was there trying to help the people of North Carolina in that capacity as well.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing your journey to the current role that you serve now and why you're seeking another term. And you talk a lot about how you are working for the needs of North Carolinians as consumers and protecting our interests. But can you talk a little bit about why the Attorney General is so important and how it impacts educators directly?
Sure. I'll give a little bit broader overview of the office and then talk about the education piece. You know, a lot of people have heard of their Attorney General. They know there is an Attorney General, but they don't always know what the Attorney General does. And my job is the top lawyer in the state, the government's lawyer, and the people's lawyer. And so my job is to fight for you. And we do that in a lot of different ways. We keep people safe from crime. We promote public safety. I'm actively working with the governor and Associate Justice of the North Carolina Supreme Court, Anita Earls, on racial justice in our criminal justice system. We need to address that issue. We need to make sure that our criminal justice system doesn't have one system of justice for white people and another system of justice for black people. We need equal justice under law, and that's a big issue. But the opioid epidemic, testing untested sexual assault kits to ensure that victims of sexual assault see justice in the criminal justice system. But we protect consumers, People who get their health insurance through the Obamacare exchanges, I'm in the U.S. Supreme Court right now defending the Affordable Care Act. If any teacher out there has a pre-existing condition and ever needs to buy insurance, I want to make sure that you are not discriminated against by an insurance company because of that fact, something that is beyond your control. We protect our natural resources, the air we breathe, water we drink, to make sure that polluters who pollute pay to clean it up. It shouldn't be on the taxpayers. It should be on them. And protecting fundamental rights to make sure that everybody lives free of discrimination and that your right to vote is protected. It's our most foundational right. Those are sort of the broad issues we work on. But one way that I have had a particular role on education is I defend the state. And when people take action against the state, my lawyers are involved. And there were people who sued about, under the Constitution, the right, what does it mean to have a sound and basic education under the North Carolina Constitution? That's called the Leandro case. And that case had been fought in courts for years and years and years and years. And when Governor Cooper and I came in, we met and I suggested that let's just take a fresh approach at this. Instead of being at loggerheads and fighting over this issue, let's get everybody around the table. Let's put together a commission. Let's hire some consultants who are experts in public education. And let's collectively determine what's needed so we can move forward together with a program to advance the quality of public education in North Carolina instead of just wasting our energy and resources fighting each other. And so that's an example of where I've tried to step in support of public education.
And Josh, we appreciate that work from Leandro, which we know is critically important to just make sure that students have the bare minimum of a sound basic education to, working on student loans and making sure that, every student, of course, has access to higher education, but then also on the backside, right, that they aren't being taken advantage of by high interest rates and long drawn out repayments, because I know we have veteran educators right now who are still making student loan payments. And so thank you for the work that you are doing.
Tamika, thank you for that. I've had to sue Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos up in Washington a number of times because when she has been faced with the choice between young people or young adults who invested in themselves to get an education, to make a better life for themselves, to serve their community, or some predatory for-profit college or some student loan servicer, time and time again, she's chosen those folks whose interests conflict with that of people who are trying to make a better life for themselves. So, for instance, people who go into public service, you're supposed to have your loans forgiven after 10 years. And under that program administered by the Department of Education, 99% have had it denied, which is just outrageous, absolutely unacceptable. And what we need is, instead of me having to sue the Secretary of Education, we need a Secretary of Education who, when faced between a choice between people who are in public service with student loans and exploitative student loan servicers, they choose the teachers.
Absolutely. We need a Secretary of Education who believes in education, in public education. So, of course, we are doing all that we can to make sure that we are spreading the word about candidates up and down the ballot who believe in pro-public education. So I appreciate that as well. And thank you. In the vein of doing that, right, thank you for the work that you're doing to protect every citizen's right to cast a ballot during this election as well. We appreciate that. So speaking of voting, this is one question I ask all of our guests, and I'm going to go ahead and ask you because, we have a whole host of guests on today. And it's the most important one, considering that we are only 7 days out from Election Day and 4 days until early voting ends on October 31st. And so I'm going to ask you, what is your voting plan? Do you plan to vote early? Have you voted already? Are you going to vote on Election Day?
I voted already. Historically, Anna and I, my wife, we've always loved to vote on Election Day. We go to our local precinct, we see the people from our neighborhood in line, or we see people working there who are friends. And it's just such a warm supportive way to cast a ballot. But this election, it was too important. I requested my mail-in ballot back in July. I mean, I knew that they weren't going to mail out the ballots till September 4th, which, by the way, North Carolina is the first state in the country to mail out those absentee ballots. And it took the Wake County Board of Elections a couple weeks to get my ballot in the mail, simply because there were so many people who had requested their mail-in ballots. But I had signed up for that texting system, that tracking system, so that when they put it in the mail, I got an alert that it was in the mail. 4 days later, it arrived. And then I put it back in the mail the next day because I was so daggum eager to vote that I then got a notice that the post office had it. And then 2 days later, I got a notice that the County Board of Elections had it and it was accepted. And knowing that my ballot was in and scanned as early voting started was just a huge, huge relief for me.
Awesome. Well, we get excited about voting because we have been waiting 4 whole years for this election. And it's not only the most important election of our lifetime, it's an important election for our democracy. So thank you so much. I'm glad that you were on. We are going to transition. Y'all show Josh some love in the comments. Thank you for being on with us, Josh. We appreciate it very, very much.
Tamika, pleasure to be with you. And I'm really glad you're going to be talking to the judges. Everybody knows it, but it's so critical for the good functioning of government that we don't just vote for the president or the U.S. senator, the governor. We don't just stop there, because we've got the whole council of state. We got all these local county races, but we have the judges, the third branch of government. And we have wonderful, talented people who are running for our Court of Appeals and our North Carolina Supreme Court. And it is imperative that we elect forward-looking, good lawyers to those courts. And so thank you for giving them a chance to talk tonight.
Not a problem. Thank you so much. All right, so we are going to transition. Thank you, Josh. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up Justice Mark Davis, and I'm going to bring up Judge Lucy, who might be away from her computer, but I'll bring her up when she comes back to the screen. And they are our NCAE endorsed candidates for Associate Justice to the Supreme Court. So welcome to Tuesdays with Tamika, Justice Davis.
I am honored to be on Tuesdays with Tamika. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Oh gosh, I am really excited to have you on. I'm gonna slide this in here because, I heard that you went to the best high school in all of the land. I heard you were class of 1984 from E.E. Smith Senior High School in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Just wanted to put that out there. And as a fellow Golden Bull from the class of 2001, I just wanted to say that made me really excited.
Well, my goodness, I did not know we shared that too. A fellow Golden Bull. I'm honored.
I know. I just wanted to put that out there so the people would know Golden Bulls are everywhere. I'm so excited
Absolutely. About it. We have, you know, Tamika, we have the best alumni base of any high school anywhere in the country. It's amazing.
The best alumni base. It is national, international. I know. Just people need to know how awesome.
For people on this call who have never had the pleasure, we have a homecoming every year that fills the entire football field, in which not just alumni from the milestone years 5, 10, 20, every single class has representatives on that football field. It is one of the most amazing things.
It is. See, once we get past this COVID-19 pandemic, I can't wait for the next E. Smith homecoming to celebrate our homecoming with you. So I am excited. You are currently an associate justice on the Supreme Court. And so what do you think is the most important function, I should say, of the North Carolina Supreme Court? And why do you want to serve on it?
Well, those are all important questions. There's so many important things the Supreme Court does. I mean, obviously, preserving the rule of law is the most important thing that any court does. And that's, the basis of any civilized society, respect for the rule of law. No one is above the law. And, as judges, of course, we do that. Another hugely important part of our role in the Supreme Court is to protect the constitutional rights of all the people of North Carolina, not only the federal constitutional rights, but also the rights in our state constitution, which, as you know, gave rise to decisions like the Leandro decision that are so important to all of us. So, that's a responsibility that we take very, very seriously. It's crucial to us that the constitutional rights we have as North Carolinians not just be words on a page, but actually have reality in the real world and tangibly apply to the citizens of our state. And that's a huge part of serving on the Supreme Court. And as for why I want to continue in this job, this is really the fulfillment of a lifelong dream for me. I've been an appellate judge for about 8 years. I've written over 500 opinions. I've decided over 1,500 appeals. Before that, I was a practicing attorney for 17 years, learning the craft of being a lawyer, and then on the Court of Appeals for 6.5 years, learning the craft of being an appellate judge. So I just feel so lucky that my past experience has prepared me for this opportunity. And I'm just so grateful to be in this wonderful job. And I'm so grateful for the support of NCAE trying to help me stay in this job for another 8 years.
We appreciate the work that you and experience that you bring to the role. And we know that, like you said, not many people, and like Josh said earlier, not many people really know why judges are critically important, but it's important to have people who are fair and balanced and listen to all of the information that is presented to them and embedded in the communities as well. Why is it really important for judges to know about the different communities in North Carolina?
Because we represent every single citizen of North Carolina. We don't just represent, people in Charlotte and Raleigh and Greensboro. We represent every single person. One of my favorite campaign stories was in 2014 when I was running for re-election to the Court of Appeals. And I was at a campaign event in one of the mountain counties that border Tennessee. And as I was leaving, someone came up to me and said, "Judge, when you get back to Asheville, tell them we're part of North Carolina too." And I just love that. I mean, that has stuck with me over the years and probably always will. And it was just such a reminder that North Carolinians are everywhere. We are a huge state. We have urban areas, we have rural areas, but they are all subject to the laws of North Carolina and the Constitution of North Carolina. And as judges, we have a responsibility to make sure that the rule of law is applied fairly to every single person in North Carolina. And let me just say, I meant to say this at the outset, why NCAE has such a special place in my heart. My wife, Marcia, is a former classroom teacher. When we got married, she was teaching 2nd and 3rd grade. She went on to get her master's and then her PhD in early childhood education. And now she trains student teachers at NC State University. So needless to say, teachers have always had a very, very special place in the Davis home. And every one of our 3 children were brought up to just revere teachers. And that's a legacy we're so proud to pass on.
And that's such a connection. Like I say this a lot of times to our guests, but lots of people, have connections to educators. And so it's important that we invest in public education and in our educators all across the state, because like you said, it's a state full of rich individuals, and we are all, North Carolina. So I appreciate you for being on. Now I'm going to hold our most important question because we have Judge Lucy. Hey, Judge Lucy, how are you?
Hi, I'm so thankful to be with you. Thank you so very, very much. And Justice Davis's wife is a great, great teacher. I don't have any teachers in my family, but I grew up in Raleigh going to the best public schools at a time when I was in so I was born in 1961. I know I'm a lot older than you, Tamika. Even though the U.S. Supreme Court had declared in 1954 that segregated schools were unconstitutional, North Carolina was pretty slow to catch up there. And when I was in elementary school, we finally combined the city and the county school systems and started integrating schools. And I went to junior high at Ligon Junior High. I had been Ligon Senior High in Raleigh, which was the crown jewel of Black high schools before it was integrated. I had the best teachers. It was just amazing. And at the time I went, there was public, disruption and uproar about busing students and all that. Flash forward, when my younger child went to middle school, we had to win a lottery to get to go to Ligon Middle School, because it is recognized as one of the very best schools in the Wake County system. And I relate to teachers, both from my own experience, and Ann Jones was the music teacher at Ligon, and she just changed my life, but also through my children. What school teachers have done for my children, especially as a working mom, is nothing. That they have played as important role in my children's lives, really, as anyone in our family.
That is amazing, the history that you shared here. And of course, I have to shout out music teachers, because we're pretty awesome. So shout out to your music teachers. Yeah, go out if you want to share anything else.
No, singing in the choir in her class. I'll say this for mediocre singers everywhere: we sound better when we're in a choir. That's why I love it. And I am sorry to be running in here a little bit late, but thank you so much for welcoming me.
No, you are fine, Judge Lisa. You are fine, and music teachers will tell you everybody can be taught how to sing, and we sound best when we are singing all together. Yes. So you are fine. But I did want to ask you a question. So I asked this of Justice Davis earlier, and I'll ask it of you. What do you think is the most important function of the Supreme Court, and why do you want to serve on it?
Wow, I think the most important function of the Supreme Court in North Carolina is the oversight, being a guardian for the law in our state in all 100 counties, whether you're in a small claims court or you're in a jury trial, or you have any interactions with our justice system in North Carolina. The North Carolina Supreme Court has the last word on what the rules are that will apply to all of us. And that's a tremendous responsibility. I am running to serve on the Supreme Court, partly because I have served with Justice Davis before, and he's an amazing colleague, so I can't wait to join him. But also because I really love writing, and I really love being very careful as we shape and sustain our state's law. And I'm very concerned that the Supreme Court not fall into the hands of any justice who has a political agenda, of any justice who's there for any reason other than serving the state. And I'm quite dedicated to doing that.
That's amazing. And I like what you said. Just it referenced what Justice Davis said earlier. North Carolina is 100 counties. And so we have to make sure that our Supreme Court looks at them as rich individuals and not with partisan lenses. And so that's really important. And so I will ask you both then our most important question. The election is happening very soon. Early voting, like I said, ends on October 31st. So Justice Davis, I'll start with you. What is your voting plan? Early on election day? Did you vote by mail? What is your plan?
So Marcia and I, we're old-fashioned, and we voted at early voting in our local, the closest one to our house, the very first day that early voting started. It's just something exciting to me about being there when there's a crowd. I mean, I just love watching people exercise their right to vote. It's just such a special, special thing. And despite COVID, I'm glad that so many people were like-minded and able to go out in person. And I know Judge Inman's done this as well. I've been going to polling sites or early voting sites around the county And I'm just always impressed by, number one, how many people are going out to vote in person, and number two, all the dedicated folks who are there to pass out cards and work the polls and do all the things that are so necessary to ensure an orderly election process. It just really makes you feel good to be an American and a North Carolinian when you watch that.
Awesome, awesome. And so, Judge Lucy, what is your plan?
Well, my plan's a little bit different from Justice Davis's. I am in a household of individuals, even between my husband and myself. So my husband has already voted by mail, and we inspected and made sure everything looked okay. I couldn't be his witness because I'm on the ballot. So his parents were his witnesses, and he's mailed that in. We are waiting to make sure that our younger son, who's in college in Baltimore, receives his absentee ballot. And we check with him every day. He hasn't received it yet. The tracker tells us it was mailed to him October 6th. So we're waiting. I am holding out to go early vote to make sure that my younger son gets his absentee ballot. Because if he doesn't, I think he's going to be making a visit home, and he's going to be going to vote with me. But we are not going to wait until November 3rd if he has not received that ballot by Thursday. He's just going to have to come down here on Friday, because I can't let my son get away with not being able to vote in this election. It is so wonderful to see how many people have come out to vote, and the turnout's encouraging. And I will say I have very strong opinions about how this election should go. But no matter what the outcome, when you have this high a percentage of people voting, it's a win. It's a win for everybody.
You are absolutely correct. The energy around voting this year is extremely exciting. And so I am glad that you shared your plans, because like our members and our educators all across the state, all of them have very different voting plans. And so I want to thank you, Judge Lucy Inman and Justice Mark Davis, for being on today as NCAE endorsed candidates for Associate Justice on the Supreme Court. I want to thank you both for your time today, and we wish you all the best on Election Day.
Thank you so much, Tamika. We are truly honored to be with you. And I'm even more excited about this election after spending the last half hour with you.
Excellent, excellent. Our educators have turned out for sure to vote. And so thank you so much. All right, so I am going to transition now to our next guest. I just can't wait also to have them on here as well. So I am going to introduce our endorsed candidates for the Court of Appeals. So let me go ahead and bring them all up. We have Judge Chris Book and Judge Ruben Young and Judge Trish Shields. Hey, friends. Welcome. I thank you so much for being patient. And like I said, this is the supersized episode of Tuesdays with Tamika. So I'm so glad that you guys were on. And welcome to Tuesdays with Tamika. So say hello to the people. We'll start with you, Judge Brooks.
Hello. Thank you so much, Tamika. This is so wonderful to be with y'all. I said this during the course of the NCAE endorsement process. You know, as somebody who went to public middle school and high school and UNC Chapel Hill for undergrad and for law school, and as someone who was raised by a single mom who was a public school teacher here in North Carolina for 3 decades, this is one of the endorsement processes that meant the most to me, and it's just so great to be with y'all a week before November 3rd.
Awesome, awesome. Trish Shields, go ahead and say hello to the people.
Hello, and thank you so much. We've all been very excited, Tamika. We do a lot of these calls, and this is one we have all been looking forward to. So I'm very, very happy to be here with you tonight, and so super appreciative of the support of the NCAE in this election.
Awesome. And Judge Young, you are next. Oh no,
Uh-oh.
we lost him. I don't know where he went. Okay. Well, we will find him when he comes back. We will put him back on the screen and we will just go ahead and proceed. So here's the thing about the judicial races, right? They don't get much attention on the ballot, and we have an extremely long ballot this year. But like we've heard already from our previous guests, the judicial branch will be crucial in the coming years to public education in North Carolina. So we'll start with you, Tricia. Can you speak briefly about your personal story and what brought you to seeking a seat on the Court of Appeals?
Sure, sure. I'm happy to. So, I'm a native North Carolinian. I'm a product of the public school system in Durham and went to UNC Legal School and graduated in 1985. And from there, I went to clerk at the Court of Appeals for then Chief Judge Hedrick. And that was just a really, really informative part of my career and really set the course for my whole career. In the 33 years since then, I've had a very active trial and appellate practice. I personally know how very, very, very important the Court of Appeals is to our justice system, to all people, all working people, to all citizens of North Carolina. From a litigant's perspective, there is no such thing as a routine case. All of them are serious, and it's very important to have judges on the court that understand that. So, and that's really what brings me to this race. I will say, in addition to my full-time practice, now I'm not a professional educator, but I have taught trial advocacy at Campbell Law School for the past 7 years. And I must say, I understand what draws people to the profession. That's honestly been one of the most meaningful parts of my professional life for the last 7 years, is helping to form the next generation of lawyers. So, and it's been fun and wonderful, frankly, running and having the support of all of those wonderful young people. So those are the things that bring me to the court. I think I know personally how important the court is to our justice system.
It's good to hear your story. Now we got Judge Young back. Hey, Judge
We
Young.
did. Hey.
And we just wanted to hear a little bit. You can say hello and then tell people why you are running for this position.
Well, look, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. I'm sorry for the technical difficulties, but I'm back. So I appreciate it. I appreciate the support of the NCAE, being a product of the public school system. I know the importance of having a good, sound education, particularly for folks who grew up in my community. I grew up the son of a minister, and three things were, well, one thing was instilled in us with regard to respect, and that is that you had respect for the ministry, you had respect for law enforcement, and you had respect for the educators and administrators of the public school system. I grew up at a time when if I got in trouble at school, I got disciplined at school, and then I got disciplined when I went home. So it was very much a community building and character building, experience for me and other people that I grew up with. I'm currently serving on the Court of Appeals. Our responsibility is to make sure that the law is applied fairly and the legal procedure is applied fairly as well. It's extremely important that our court has a diversity on it that is reflective of the demographics of our state, both as to race and to gender. But the thing I appreciated about the slate that we have running for the court that the NCAE has endorsed is that we are folks who come from different backgrounds and different experiences, but we're all committed to the same thing, and that is the fair treatment of everyone, regardless of where they come from and what their circumstances may be in life. I've been fortunate to be a prosecutor, a defense attorney. I've headed up the state's largest state agency. I've been legal counsel to the governor. So I've been very blessed to do a lot of things, including being a Superior Court judge. I can't emphasize to folks that education is how we level the playing field for so many people who have not had the opportunity to advance because maybe they weren't born with the advantages of other folks. So thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. I want to continue to ensure that those opportunities are available for all North Carolinians.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your story. So I heard a little bit of preacher's kid in there, so I totally understand. I get it. Judge Brooke, tell us a little bit about your story and why you're running for a seat.
Sure. As I mentioned previously, grew up in Raleigh. I'm a double Tar Heel, went to UNC for undergrad and for law school. And I was, only ever worked as a North Carolina attorney before being appointed to the bench a year and a half ago. First, that was at a law firm in downtown Raleigh, but then for more than a decade, for pushing 15 years, before being appointed to the bench, I was a public interest and civil rights attorney. First at the Southern Coalition for Social Justice, where I did everything from heirs property work, protecting Black family land, especially in the eastern portion of our state, to protecting the voting rights of all North Carolinians. And then for the 7 years prior to being appointed to the bench, I was the legal director of the American Civil Liberties Union of North Carolina. And as part of that, the Leandro litigation was mentioned previously by Attorney General Stein, and that litigation obviously has been going on for quite some time. But one of the things I was most proud of as legal director of the ACLU of North Carolina was playing a role in amicus brief in later Leandro litigation, working for equitable funding for to make real the promise of a sound basic education for all North Carolinians. So, I would echo what Judge Young said previously, and I think what we all think. Part of the reason I became an attorney was because the words equal justice under the law are not just words on the courthouse walls. They're things that we care deeply about, and that's why I went to law school. That's why I was a public interest attorney, and that's an equity that I carry forward in my service on the bench. And I think if you look at the 88 opinions that I've written as a member of the Court of Appeals since being appointed a year and a half ago, you see, the commitment to judicial independence, the commitment to not being a rubber stamp for any interest, but also the commitment to equal justice under the law and respecting all North Carolinians who appeared before us.
That is wonderful. And, your work around racial and social justice mirrors the work that we do here at NCAE as an organization for racial and social justice, and the NEA as well. So we appreciate your hard work, your lengthy work in that area as well, especially, and you shouted out Eastern North Carolina because, the East and the West often feel as if, they don't have advocates fighting for them. So thank you for the work that you did for Eastern and Western North Carolina as well. And I want to bring up Judge Kubich here, who is also trying to join your team on the Court of Appeals. And I will say, Judge Laura, I will also say you have already been introduced already because we talked about your fabulous eyewear. And so I just wanted to go ahead and put that out there. But can you tell us a little bit about your story and tell us why you are running for the Court of Appeals?
Well, my story is I came to North Carolina about 27 years ago. I spent 17 years cutting hair. So behind a barber chair, I kept hearing stories of folks who had not so nice encounter with the justice system. The more stories I heard, the more compelled I wanted to do more. So at about 17 years, I stepped out from behind the chair, went to North Carolina A&T for my undergrad, and then went on to UNC Chapel Hill for law school. And then I've held the positions of assistant district attorney, assistant attorney general, district court judge, and now serving as superior court judge. And I wanted to run for Court of Appeals because I think it makes a difference when you're looking at cases when you have different backgrounds, different specialties, different cultural experiences, and that way you bring different perspectives. And so when you're looking at these very important cases that for criminal issues are dealing with years and years of people's liberty, and for civil issues is dealing with people's whole lives. Sometimes their families being intact or not, their businesses thriving or not. You need all of what you can to come to the table and collaborate on these cases. And so I felt like I'm well balanced enough and well versed in the criminal and civil law as well as other areas, and have enough experience after 15 years that joining the dynamic Judge Chris Brook and Judge Reuben Young would be the best thing for me and the best thing for North Carolina.
I think that's awesome. If I were just looking at the screen right now, when you talk about the diversity of like this group, you talk about diversity of experiences and all of the skill sets that you guys bring to the table. I couldn't imagine why we wouldn't want to have a court of judges that look just like you. So I am super excited about that. So one of the things, of course, I'm going to ask you, just like I asked all of our previous guests, what is your voting plan? And we'll start with you, Judge Brook. What is your voting plan? Voting early, election day, voting by mail?
Maura and I got itchy because we are impatient, and I'll just be candid. We wanted to get those votes in something fierce. We had a plan, and one of the great things about being a candidate is you get to see other candidates up close. And I'll just echo what Judge Cubbage just said. I was ecstatic and could not wait to vote for Judge Cubbage. I could not wait to vote for Judge Young. I could not wait to vote for Tricia Shields. I could not wait to vote for our friend Gray Stiers, who's also endorsed by NCAE, who's running for the Court of Appeals. So we didn't go the first day because the lines were just too gosh darn long. But we waited in line for about 45 minutes on day two. They did a great job at my polling place, maintaining social distance, making sure everybody was comfortable and safe, and got us in and out in a really orderly fashion. And let me tell you something, Tamika, I always take my time filling in those bubbles, but I might have been in there for like 10 or 15 minutes because it is a long ballot and I wanted to make sure that I got everything right. So I was making sure that there was not a stray mark anywhere on that ballot as I filled it out the second day of early voting. So more of my ballots are already in. We were really excited to do that.
Awesome. Tricia, what are your plans?
So I went the first Sunday of early voting, and the line didn't look that long, but it turned out to be pretty long. We were there for 2 hours, but I love voting. I love voting. My parents took me, my mother took me with her when I was a child. When my children were younger, I used to take them. And that's one thing I honestly don't mind standing in line for. And you can feel the community and the excitement around it, right? And I will agree with what Judge Brooks said. There's something, I'll say there's an unusual thrill about seeing your own name on the ballot. But when you see the names of so many people you care about and respect, it's amazing. It's amazing. So yes, we got it in. We got it in on Sunday, and then I texted all my friends on this call and said, "You got 2 votes today."
That is wonderful. That is wonderful. Judge Young, what is your plan? You are muted, Judge Young. So I just wanted to let you know that.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. My wife and I are traditionalists to the extent that we love to go on the day of the election and go vote. But there are so many things that are going on now, and so much disinformation that is out there with regard to the legitimacy of the vote, where you go, the information that is being disseminated is, how shall I say, less than trustworthy. So what we did this time is that we requested our ballots early. We filled them out. And I delivered them. And I went to the Board of Elections in Wake County, delivered our votes there. We tracked them. They've been accepted. We voted, and we have voted to maintain the soul of our democracy. And that was very important to us. And it was a motivating factor behind why we did it early.
Awesome. And Judge Cubbage, how are you planning to cast your vote in this election?
I guess I'm more particular. I used to say the word anal, and somebody said don't say anal, say particular. So I guess I'm more particular and have more of a type A personality than my running mates, because I got my vote. I voted by mail, and I voted, I think it was like September the 22nd. So when I got my ballot in the mail, I voted, and then I even went and dropped it off. And when they made me fill out this purple sheet of paper, I'm like, well, how come I don't get that piece of paper saying I dropped it off? But I didn't get it. And so I did ballottracks.net to keep tracking it from the day after. And finally it showed up that it had been accepted on September 22nd. But more so than being particular, I'm just so crazy about my running mates that I wanted to be one of the first people to vote for them.
That is amazing. So, first of all, I just want to say, it's not very often that we get to have judges talk, and interact with educators. And so I want to first thank you all for your service to North Carolina. And I want to thank you for being on this program, because lots of our members and educators are in the comments talking about how informative it is. And so I really appreciate you all taking the time out to do this for us today. And then I will just share a couple of other things. I appreciate you also sharing your plan to vote, because we want to encourage all of our members to vote. So I will let you go around. I'll start with Judge Brooke if you want to say a couple of more things before we close out this evening.
Well, first, I just want to say to NCAE and Tamika, thank you so much for this opportunity. Like I said at the outset, all of the endorsements that I've been fortunate enough to receive are meaningful to me, but there really was not one that was more meaningful to me than the NCAE endorsement as the son of a public school teacher who has benefited. We moved when I was 10 years old from Georgia to North Carolina because North Carolina had better public schools than Georgia. So I know how much public education has meant to me as a North Carolinian. So I was thrilled. I was over the moon when I got this endorsement. But y'all, I'll just end by saying thanks again, but I'll also offer a little bit of a challenge. We're 7 days from the most important election, in my opinion, in any of our lifetimes. And, a lot of folks out there who are joining us this evening know the stakes, know the importance, know who they're voting for president, for governor, for United States Senate. But almost half of our Supreme Court is on the ballot right now. A third of the Court of Appeals, the court that we're running to, in Judge Young, in my case, to stay on, and in Judge Cubbage, Tricia Shields, and Grace Starrett's case to join, a third of the Court of Appeals is on the ballot. These are 8-year terms that we're seeking for the Supreme Court and the Court of Appeals. We're deciding right now what kind of justice system we're going to have in North Carolina for the better part of a decade. So I know that there's some folks out there who are tuning in, who know folks who haven't voted yet, who don't maybe know who they're voting for president, for governor, for U.S. Senate. Tell them to go all the way down the ballot, get educated about the judges. You can go to Fair Judges NC to learn a little bit more about all 8 of the wonderful folks who I'm lucky enough to be running with for Supreme Court and for Court of Appeals. Get educated, because justice is on the ballot, and the justice system that we have here in North Carolina for the next decade is on the ballot. But again, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Judge Cubbage, any final words?
I'm going to piggyback off of what Judge Brooks said and continue the storyline and say, after you get educated, make sure that you take the time, vote the ballot, front, back to front. I always say start from the back and go toward the front, because as he said, you're not going to miss the president. But so very often in these elections, people miss their local and state candidates. And we're the ones that's making decisions that's going to affect your life today, your congressional seats, your executive branch, your council of state, and most importantly, your judges. And you've seen in 2020 the effect that judges have, and the effect that we're going to have, as Judge Brooks said, is going to be for the next decade. And the decisions we make are going to be in place for decades and decades to come. So please, please, please don't forget the judges when you vote. Thank you. And thanks for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. Judge Young, you are muted. Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Thank you very much. And thank you for the opportunity to be here. Not only thank you for the support that you have given to me, but also to the other members of this slate as a result of your endorsements. But not just that. I have to thank you for the work that y'all do every day, because it's the work that you put in that makes our society so much better. It gives children who otherwise would not have an opportunity to excel and to be better than who they are if it were not for y'all in the classroom doing the work that you do every day. So first of all, let me thank you for that and the work that you do. And let me encourage you, like my colleagues have, to go out and vote. And if you've already voted, thank you so much for doing so, and God bless you. And please tell other folks the importance of going out to vote. Don't, just because we're down ballot, that doesn't mean that the work that we do is not important. Because judges play a critical role in all of our lives. And if you are a student of government and how it functions, you know that there are three branches of government. And so often there are conflicts between the executive branch and the legislative branch that need to be resolved, and they're resolved by judges. And if we do not have judges that are independent and fair and impartial, then you're going to get decisions that are going to be lined up with a particular ideology. And that is not what justice is about. Justice is about making sure that the law is applied and that it is applied fairly. So I implore you to go out and vote, but please remember that this is just one step in the process. Because after we do this, what we have to do is make sure that we hold accountable those that we have elected to these positions. And when we do that, our society becomes a better place because we can deal with the inequities that exist with regard to race and the gender and also the poverty and the other issues that exist in our society that have existed for far too long. So thank you very much for the opportunity to be here, and let's go out and vote.
Wonderful, powerful words you shared there. And Trisha Shields, you have the last word, my friend.
I love having the last word. My colleagues here know that. So thank you so much for having us. They do. See, they're all laughing. But thank you so much for having us. You know, you're looking at people on this screen. Every one of us is where we are today because of public school teachers. And we are so grateful. My sixth grade teacher, Sally Ennis, changed my life, and I will never forget her. And so it's so important what you all do. And I want to piggyback a little bit on something that Judge Young said. You know, one of the things, if I tell folks this, if you're concerned about what's going on in our federal government, you're concerned about what's going on with the Supreme Court, you need to remember we have our own Constitution here in North Carolina. And it is our courts, our state courts, that interpret that Constitution. That Constitution also protects individual rights. So it's important to remember that. And it's important to remember one of the nice things, judicial elections are tough, and none of us will tell you that they're not. But the nice thing about it is that people have a say. They have a voice in who their judges are. So please use that voice. Use that voice by voting. Encourage your family and your friends and your colleagues and everybody you know to use that voice. And as Judge Cubbage said, and as we all like to say, just please don't forget the judges. Thank you for having us.
Well, thank you so much. And now you see all of these people on the screen. They're right here on the NCAE Apple card, right here at the top. So you will go ahead and make sure that you cast your votes if you haven't already. So thank you. So I'm going to transition off of this part to do our closing part. And so I can't wait. I hope we get to talk to these judges some more at another point. So I just wanted to say to our members and our educators who are watching this evening, this particular episode is really important because every single level of government you can think of, from your local school board races all the way up to the Supreme Court of North Carolina, all the way up to the tip top of the United States president, is on this ballot. So remember, same day voter registration and voting is still available at any early voting location site until this Saturday, the 31st, October 31st. So if you haven't had a chance to vote, please make your plan now. We have already seen record turnout all over North Carolina. Over 3 million North Carolinians have already voted, and almost half of registered voters have already cast their ballot. So there's a good chance that I'm talking to the choir here, preaching to the choir, that you have already voted, but that does not mean that you are done. Trust me, the text messages will not stop, and I'm probably sure you're probably still getting emails from candidates. However, if you have already voted, I am asking you to make sure that you get 3 of your friends or families who have not voted yet and get them to go to the polls before Saturday. So if you want to, of course, see all of the candidates that are on the NCAE Apple Card, I want you to go to NCAEvotes2020.org to make sure that you know who to vote for before you go. I want to thank you all so much for watching Tuesdays with Tamika. Next Tuesday, is the NCAE election night party. So make sure you tune in. You'll see some of these candidates that were on the show today jump back on to our election night Zoom party. So please make sure you watch out for that. Make sure you register so that you can attend that. Thank you so much for hanging in there, y'all. But the good lessons are always worth the wait. So make sure that you go to NCAEvotes2020.org, and we will see y'all next Tuesday. Bye.